I used to be the one no one mentioned in family conversations. No one asked where I lived, what I was doing, or if I was okay. For nearly 2 decades, the name Taylor existed only on Christmas cards sent out of obligation. And now, after 18 years of absence, I received an invitation. A small embossed card, shimmering with gold, looking fancy, as if the whole family had suddenly leveled up. I placed it on the marble countertop in my upscale apartment in downtown Los Angeles, the morning sunlight streaming through the glass wall, highlighting the words that made me smirk. "You're invited to the 27th annual Morgan family reunion." I knew that kind of tradition all too well. A tradition of ignoring me. A tradition of belittling my choices. 18 years ago, I chose to walk away. Not because I was rebellious, but because I was tired of pretending I was fine in a family that measured people by paychecks, degrees, and visible assets. I used to be the dreamer, the artsy one, the failure of the Morgan family. I was the one my mother used as a warning in conversations with relatives. "Don't be like your sister, all that digital art stuff is just a passing phase." I sipped my espresso, eyes scanning my phone screen, where the headline hadn't left my mind in 24 hours. Forbes under 35, Taylor Morgan, founder of ArtLink, a digital art platform valued at $2,800,000,000, 0 cents. The article was scheduled to go live on Friday, exactly 2 days before the reunion. How fitting. I had stayed away from the spotlight for almost 2 decades, and now, with a single article, everything was about to explode. The landline rang. I already knew whose voice would be on the other end. "Miss Taylor, your brother Max has called 3 times this morning," Lily, my assistant and house manager, said through the intercom. I exhaled, a little long. Of course, Max was always the first to react when the family image was threatened. I picked up. "Hey, Max." "Jesus, Taylor, what the hell is going on? NBC just called me to ask what it's like being the brother of a billionaire." His voice was full of anger, but I could hear the panic behind it more clearly. I turned to look at the city skyline from the 38th floor, the place I lived, worked, and owned my freedom. "Maybe you'll understand better once the article's out," I replied calmly. "Don't mess with me, Taylor. You let us all think you were a failure. You lived like a hobo, drove that old Camry for 10 years. "That was a choice," I interrupted, still speaking gently. "I never asked anyone in the family for money, Max, and that car, sometimes people need a cover." I didn't plan to say much. Not now. Because the real story would begin on the day of the reunion, when every pair of eyes would turn toward me. Not out of pity, but because finally, they would see who I really was. I woke up earlier than usual on Friday morning, without even needing an alarm. Outside the glass window, Los Angeles was still drowsy in the misty light, but every sense in me was already wide awake. I brewed a strong black coffee, opened my laptop, and waited. 6 o'clock, I am in. The article went live on the Forbes homepage. The headline appeared, bold like a slash across a calm surface. "Taylor Morgan and ArtLink, the $2,800,000,000, 0 cents digital art empire built in silence." Right below was the photo I personally approved. Me, standing in front of my virtual gallery at the Venice exhibit, the lights reflecting off my custom navy mule suit, the collar stitched with my name in fine silver thread. I scrolled down to read the opening lines. At age 34, Taylor Morgan, once labeled the fulfiller of the prestigious Morgan family, has quietly built a tech platform transforming the global digital art industry. With over 2 million users and hundreds of millions in annual revenue, ArtLink is on track to become America's next tech unicorn. I took a slow breath, not because I was surprised, but because it was finally time. Within 10 minutes, my phone was buzzing nonstop. Messages, calls, emails, all flooding in. Names I hadn't seen in years popped up on the screen, people I had long filed away under past. First was Max. No call this time, just a message. "Taylor, is this real? You're the CEO of ArtLink?" I didn't respond. Next came my mother. The woman who hadn't asked me a single thing about my work in 18 years. Sweetheart, I just saw the article. Please call me. Then Aunt Sarah? The one who always bragged at Christmas? Sweetie, I had no idea you were doing something so big. I'm so proud of you. I set my coffee cup down and chuckled softly. The same people who couldn't be bothered to attend my first gallery show were now scrambling to congratulate me. In my inbox, one email stood out. From the office of Blake Morrison, my father's longtime business associate. I opened it. Taylor, I believe it's time we sit down and discuss a potential partnership between ArtLink and Morrison Capital. Any misunderstandings from the past should be put behind us. I was very impressed with today's article. 3 years ago, it was Blake who turned down my pitch with the words, "We don't gamble on digital art." Now he wants to sit down and talk. The intercom buzzed. "Miss Taylor, there's someone waiting in the lobby. She says she's your mother." I turned to the security monitor, and it was her. My mother, in an old Chanel dress, eyes tense, just like the last time I left home. "Let her up," I said flatly. Moments later, the door opened. She stepped in slowly, as if trying to take in everything. The artwork on the walls, the sleek Italian sofa. "Taylor," she spoke, her voice softer than usual. "How long have you been living like this?" I set my coffee down, calm. "Almost 7 years, since the third time you said this isn't a real career." She sat down, her eyes cloudy. "The article, is it true? $2.8 billion? "It's true," I replied. "And that's just the current number." The room fell silent. She looked at me, not with doubt this time, but with a confusion I had never seen before. "I didn't know, "That's right," I said gently, cutting her off. "You never asked." I still remember that day, one summer evening in the suburban estate near Seattle, where I grew up surrounded by expectations and unspoken rules. Sunday dinners at my parents' house were always informal rituals. Who got praised, who got teased, who was on track, and who was falling behind. That night I was 24, a year out of Stanford with a degree in economics. But instead of applying to banks or investment firms like my family expected, I was studying 3D design and blockchain for digital art. "What are you going to do with that computer art stuff?" my father asked, unable to hide his skepticism. I remember smiling and saying, "I'm building a platform that helps global artists own and sell their work in new ways." He set his knife down, smirking. "That's just fantasy, Taylor. The world doesn't pay for illusions." My mother was gentler, but just as firm. "You should reconsider. Working at your uncle's law firm would be more stable, don't you think? Art is a hobby, not a real job." My brother Max, who had just been accepted into Harvard's MBA program, sat quietly. He said nothing, but his eyes said it all. Another mistake from my sister. I stayed silent, not because I had nothing to say, but because I knew that at that table, my words held no weight. They had no idea I had just sold my first NFT art collection for $180,000, 0 cents, or that an investment firm in San Francisco had offered to collaborate and build ArtLink from its beta stage. I didn't tell them. I simply stood up, folded my napkin, and said, "I think I'll find my own path, thanks for dinner." 2 weeks later, I moved into an old studio apartment in Oakland. No air conditioning, moldy walls, but strong internet and great natural light for 3D modeling. The beat-up Toyota I drove back then was once the butt of a joke at a Christmas party. When Tessa, my cousin, laughed, "Taylor's still hanging on to her college memories?" No one asked why I hadn't upgraded my car. No one was curious why I refused financial help from the family. They just nodded as if they were pitying me, the lost, stubborn sister/daughter/cousin, living a broke artist's life. Their condescension didn't come from outright insults. It came through glances, polite nods, the way they ignored me whenever I brought up my work. But that silence became my fuel. I spent the next 5 years pulling all-nighters with engineers, pitching to investors, debugging the platform, building every pixel myself. No parties, no vacations, no one behind me but me. and every word they said every time they turned away, I remembered. Not for revenge, but so I'd never forget. I got here without them. I started building ArtLink in a room less than 200 square feet, with peeling walls and a jammed window. The desk was a cheap composite one I bought from a student moving out. And the laptop I had to sell my graduation watch just to afford a machine powerful enough for graphic design. On day one I had no team. No engineers, no investors. Just me, some coding skills, and a blind belief that digital art wasn't just a phase. I worked almost without sleep for the first 14 months. Mornings designing, afternoons pitching, evenings answering emails, and nights debugging the platform until sunrise. There were days when I didn't leave my chair for 18 hours straight, surviving only on coffee and $2.00 frozen meals. My first collection, Metaverse Shadows, quietly launched on a small NFT platform. It sold out within 9 hours. I earned $320,000 0 cents. No one in my family knew. Because at that exact time, Max was celebrating his promotion to Vice President of Investments, and my mom was busy showing off her Napa Valley vacation on Facebook. I once sent out invitations to my first exhibition in San Francisco. No one came. After that, I stopped sending them. Instead, I kept building ArtLink. I used all the money I earned to hire 2 software engineers, 1 blockchain developer, and a communications assistant. We worked out of a temporary apartment in downtown Oakland, aiming to turn digital art into real value. By the 3rd year, ArtLink had reached 1 million users and over $150 million, 0 cents in total transactions. We were featured on Forbes Tech Radar as a platform redefining the future of art ownership. And I, the founder, still drove my 10-year-old Camry, wore faded jeans, and politely declined family party invitations, claiming I was freelancing somewhere. I knew what they thought. Poor Taylor, still trying to find her place. I heard that exact phrase from my aunt's mouth during the 4th year's Christmas dinner. I just smiled, like I always did. Smiled and remembered. In the 5th year, I turned down a $480 million 0 cents buyout offer from a Silicon Valley corporation. Not because I was arrogant, but because I knew I wasn't done. I hadn't reached the finish line yet. I still remember the feeling when the company revenue hit $1 billion. Not excitement, not joy, just peace. The peace of knowing I had climbed the summit on my own, with no applause, no validation from the people who once turned their backs. I kept that old Camry until last year. Still visited home in simple clothes, still paid for gifts like a responsible eldest daughter. Let them think whatever they wanted. Because I didn't need them to see me. I needed them to witness, with their own eyes, when the truth was revealed. And that moment was coming. 3 days after the Forbes article was published, I got a text from Max. The family's planning the reunion at the old villa in Palm Springs. Next Sunday. Everyone's coming. How amusing. For nearly 2 decades, I hadn't been invited to a single official family gathering. But now that my name was all over national media, suddenly they remembered I was part of the family. I didn't reply right away. Instead, I called Lily, my personal assistant. I want to change all the plans for next weekend, I said, calm but firm. We're not going to Palm Springs, she asked. I smiled. We're redoing the reunion, my way. We chose a private island off the east coast of Belize, peaceful, luxurious, and remote enough that nothing would interrupt my moment. Within 24 hours, the entire logistics team was activated. I hired an elite event planning company that usually handled weddings for the ultra-rich to prepare accommodations, menus, and decor. Every guest, meaning the entire Morgan family, would be picked up by Rolls-Royces from their homes, taken to a private airport in LA, and flown on my Gulfstream G650 jet. Don't let them know the destination in advance, I told Lily. Just print on the ticket, Taylor Morgan Family Reunion, dress formal. I wanted them to feel every layer of transformation, every step they once thought didn't exist. From the moment they stepped into the car, to seeing my name printed on the jet, to landing on a private island where every detail bore my mark. I had a helipad built on top of the main villa. I had the ArtLink logo printed on every napkin, room key, and cocktail glass. And most importantly, I ordered large framed prints of the Forbes article to be placed in every single guest room. I wanted to make sure they couldn't look away. Couldn't avoid it. Couldn't claim they didn't know what I had done. I also hired a professional film crew to document the entire journey. Not to broadcast it, but to archive it, as a kind of living contrast between past and present. "Taylor, are you sure you want to go this far?" Lily asked, a hint of hesitation in her eyes. I looked out at the deep blue ocean in the distance and nodded. "I'm not doing this to show off. I'm doing it to remind them. The people who once looked down on me deserve to see exactly what they missed." That same day, I sent a message in the family group chat, the one I hadn't typed a single word in for the past 7 years. "The flight will depart at 9 a.m. this Sunday. Dress appropriately for a formal event on a private island. Please arrive on time." 10 minutes later, Max replied, "Private island?" Tessa added, "Taylor, don't tell me you're serious." I didn't respond. I simply picked up a glass of red wine, stepped out onto the balcony, and let the sea breeze carry away my final thought. They once thought I was a minus sign on the Morgan family map. This time, I am the coordinate they'll have to navigate back to. I stood on the private jet runway, the sea breeze gently brushing against my floor-length silk dress. Golden sunlight reflected off the ivory white jet, where the silver letters Taylor Morgan-ArtLink ran boldly along the fuselage. 3 Rolls-Royces pulled in one after another, their tires gliding along the white stone path leading to the welcome area. The first car stopped. Stepping out was my father, still sharp in his light gray suit, but the pride in his eyes from past years was gone. Next came my mother, wearing oversized sunglasses, clutching her classic Chanel handbag, the symbol of the graceful elegance she had always pursued. Behind them were Max, his face tense, and Tessa, my cousin, the one who once told me to stop dreaming and get a real job. They stepped out, eyes darting around, visibly unsettled as if they'd entered a different universe. Then they saw me. I smiled softly, not to boast, not to provoke, just enough to remind them that this time, I was the one hosting. "Welcome to my island," I said, voice calm but clear amidst the luxurious backdrop of nature and architecture. "Hope the flight wasn't too inconvenient." My father walked up, looking at the jet behind me. "Taylor, is this real?" I tilted my head. "More than real?" Tessa whispered to Max, barely audible but still reaching my ears. "She has her own island?" I turned to her, my smile unwavering. "Tessa, I also have an art collection that sold for over $100 million, 0 cents, but the island sounds more dramatic, right?" My mother tightened her grip on her bag, her voice soft. "You prepared all this just to shock the family?" I looked her in the eye. Not to shock, to be seen. They didn't say anything more. Just quietly followed me into the main resort, where private villas lined the coastline, each one with a nameplate and a large framed copy of the Forbes article in the living room. As they entered their rooms, I turned to Lily, who had been by my side the entire time. "Make sure they get all the documents," I instructed. "Every word they ever said, every opportunity they rejected, every milestone I've hit." Lily nodded. "Everything's in place." I poured myself a glass of champagne, eyes following my family's steps as they disappeared behind those high-end wooden doors. Tonight, they would see, and they would listen. For the first time, they would listen to me. The main dining hall glowed under chandeliers, their light reflecting off glass walls overlooking the night ocean. A long table covered in white silk sparkled with candles and crystal glasses, all perfectly arranged. At each seat was a nameplate and a leather-bound folder embossed with the words, "The truth that was never asked." My family entered, one by one. No one said much, just glances, searching, and a hint of confusion. I stood and invited them to sit. Before we begin dinner, I want to share why I organized this reunion the way I did. My father nodded, trying to stay composed. Taylor, I think we're all curious. I glanced around the table. No, they're not curious, they're surprised. Because if anyone truly wanted to know what I've done over the past 18 years, they would have asked. But no one did. My mother sighed. We just thought you weren't ready. No, you thought I had nothing to be ready for. I tapped the tablet beside me. A large screen behind me lowered, displaying a video that began with my own voice, narrating the journey from a rundown apartment to my first successful funding round. Each section was interwoven with quotes from family members, pulled from old emails, texts, and conversations I remembered word for word. Taylor should give up. That NFT stuff is a scam. She's wasting her Stanford degree. Still not working a real job, huh? The room froze in silence. I turned off the video and looked at them. That's what I heard for nearly 2 decades, but I kept going. Alone. Tessa lowered her head. Max remained quiet. My mother looked at me, like she was seeing her daughter for the first time. My father finally spoke. We were wrong. I nodded. I don't need an apology. I just want everyone to understand. I didn't fail. I chose differently and I succeeded. Not by the family's standard, but by mine. I walked slowly toward the table and raised my glass. Tonight we're dining as a family, but for the first time on the foundation of truth, not assumptions. They raised their glasses with me, hesitant at first but warmer with every second. Finally, they truly saw me. Dinner passed in a quiet atmosphere, but no longer tense. Exquisite dishes were served in fine dining style, but no one really paid attention to the flavors. They were still processing the truth that had just surfaced. When dessert was served, Max was the first to speak. You really kept it all hidden, he said quietly, no longer mocking. I thought I knew you best in the family. Turns out, I didn't know anything. I didn't blame him. I just nodded. Because you never asked. He looked down. Next time, I will. Tessa gently set her spoon down. She didn't look at me directly, but her eyes were red. You can stay mad at me forever if you want, she said. But I'm truly sorry. I thought I was better than you. Just because I was more stable. I had no idea you'd done so much. For the first time in years, I saw true sincerity in Tessa's voice. I nodded. No need to say anything more. Some apologies, when they come at the right time, don't need a reply. My mother had been silent the entire evening, gripping the silk napkin on her lap. Finally, she spoke. Taylor, I'm not proud of you because you're rich. I'm proud of you because you didn't give up, even when I didn't believe in you. I should have been the first to stand by you, not the last to find out you'd made it. My throat tightened. Not from hurt, but because that recognition, though late, carried an unexpected weight. I held her hand. I didn't need you to believe in me from the beginning. I just need you to see me now and not turn away anymore. My mother's eyes wavered, then filled with tears. For the first time, I no longer had to prove who I was. I just needed to be myself, and this time, they truly saw me. The next morning I woke up early. The sea was still. The breeze gently rustled through the palm trees along the shore. I stepped out onto the veranda, coffee in hand, watching the sunlight turn the water gold. Behind me, the villa was still quiet, but I knew something had shifted inside the people who once thought they knew me. I didn't organize this reunion to be praised. I did it to close an old chapter, the one where I was forever the failure, and to begin a new chapter, where I no longer needed anyone's belief to be myself. If you're reading this and have ever been doubted, underestimated, or told your dreams were unrealistic, remember, you don't need to be understood from the start, you just need to not give up. Because one day, when you stand tall on the summit you built yourself, no gaze will ever be able to deny you. Keep going, and let the results speak. Taylor Morgan's story is powerful proof that success doesn't need to be loud, just persistent. In a world that often judges by appearance and instant achievement, Taylor chose to quietly build real value. And when the truth came out, she didn't need to shout because the results spoke for her. In real life, you may be overlooked or pushed aside, but if you believe in your path and keep going, one day your silence will demand to be heard. What do you think about Taylor's journey and how her family changed? Share your thoughts below. And don't forget to follow the channel for more inspiring stories about life, choices, and growth within every family.